But because all of our students come from China, they soon begin to make friends quickly. They share history and stories about their own places in China, whether it's Yantai or Suzhou or Beijing. So that's kind of unique. So because they come from different areas.
In this video, you'll meet Maria Pereira, who's the principal of SuOn Academy in Toronto, Ontario. And in this video, you'll hear her talk about the unique opportunity that their students have coming from China. And you'll also hear her talk about the systems and structures in place that make sure that their time at SuOn is safe, as well as educational. And as well, it gives them a broader cultural education about living in Canada, as well as the academics and the social skills to thrive in university. Hi, I'm here with Maria Pereira, who's the principal of SuOn Academy in Toronto, Ontario. Hi, Maria, how are you?
Hi, great, thank you. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Can you begin by telling us 3 things that you love about your job?
Well, I've been in education for almost 40 years now. The best part about my job is always my students. The best part about any school is the students. And certainly the students at SuOn Academy are simply the best. Our students come from different parts of China, and they come with a goal in mind. And the goal is to work hard and to be accepted into university. Another thing that I enjoy at SuOn and as a principal is having the ongoing communication with parents. That is critical in any school. So how our students do, we have counselors that are attached to each student, and through those counselors, I'm able to communicate to the parents about the students' progress. And the other thing that I love the most is that kids always keep you young. You never get old in this position because the kids are really the hope for tomorrow, and they never lose hope. And through them, neither do we. So I would say those are 3 things that keep me positive every day.
And how did you arrive at SuOn Academy? Did you join for any particular reason? And what has your journey been so far at the school?
Well, when I retired as a public system principal, I had been a principal for over 22 years. I taught at Niagara University. I taught teachers, the teachers course. And then from there, I was offered a position at SuOn, working with international teachers mostly, and principals and vice principals from China who were visiting Canada and learning about the education system. While doing that, I would observe the students on a daily basis. And so the position was offered to me as principal. And knowing how wonderful the kids were, I could not refuse. And I really did make the right decision.
And so can you describe the particular model of SuOn? And it's quite unique in Canada.
Yeah, so SuOn has celebrated 10 years of academic excellence. So you don't have academic excellence without the support of excellent teachers, excellent support staff, and as an administrator, you have to also have an open door. So I think that our students, it's different because this is not just a school where they come and they go. It is a school, but is also their home. When our students arrive, they, at the beginning, describe a feeling of, being alone because they've just left their families so far away. But because all of our students come from China, they soon begin to make friends quickly. They share history and stories about their own places in China, whether it's Yantai or Suzhou or Beijing. So that's kind of unique. So because they come from different areas, they will share a lot about the culture, a lot about the history, the music, and the education system. So this is a good thing. So when they begin to do that, they don't feel so isolated and so alone. So from beginning to the end, they talk about how the next time they go to the airport, they won't be alone anymore because they've learned about SuOn as a school, they've made friends, and they've also learned about a completely new culture, which of course is the Canadian culture.
And in the process of families in China researching the schools that are available in Canada, after they've decided that they want a Canadian education for their children, what are some of the opportunities they have to learn about SuOn? Can they visit the school? Are there outreach efforts as well?
Well, absolutely. Last year I went to China twice, and I spoke to various groups. I spoke to principal groups, vice principal groups, and of course my favorite group is the parents, because the parents make a huge sacrifice, and grandparents. Our students are very lucky to have parents and grandparents who really sacrifice to give them the best that life can offer. And for me, that's an education because it really sets you up in life. So when I went, some of my suggestions would be that parents definitely know who the principal of the school is. Definitely ask questions about the curriculum and the courses. But also, if they are foreign students and are living here, such as the students at SuOn, ask about the cafeteria food, ask about the dorm. And the number one question that parents ask, even in Canada, when kids go to high school, is the school safe? And I can assure any parent that our school is probably one of the safest that you will find in Toronto. Because our students are so committed to learning, committed to attending their classes regularly, and committed to making new friends and doing things in the environment, it makes it for a very, very safe environment.
And what are the benefits of having a safe school environment, but also within a big city like Toronto, and having that relationship exist?
Yeah, so what I do when students arrive, I have lectures on, the school rules, but also a little bit about where are we, and being culturally smart, but also street smart. And I think that's something that I do as a principal, but our counselors also have workshops with our students about things like safety, opening up a bank account, how to get along Toronto with your transit, card. So these are all things that are part of the education on the side that students have to learn when you're new to a country. Our students do, not now because of COVID, but they get to know the city very quickly. They really adapt quicker than I ever thought that they would.
And it is a bonus that Toronto is such a multicultural place that there are some pockets of the city that may feel like home, might serve that that need if they're missing something about being back home.
Absolutely. I mean, I was born in Portugal myself, so I came and again, I came from a different country. I came when I was very young. So the beautiful thing about Toronto for me, and I try to describe that to my students, and I think they witness that, is that Toronto is very multicultural. And I think that in that multiculturalism, I try to talk to my students about looking for similarities in human beings, not focus so much on the differences between us, but what we have in common, what we can share, and how we can support each other. And certainly through COVID, we have learned that, right? That we are not alone, right? We saw many local heroes in Toronto and all over the world supporting each other and just being there and caring. And I know that my students will be not just from Toronto, they're going to be global citizens, and that's a very important lesson to learn in life. How do we get along? How do we communicate and collaborate with people who may be different from us, but have similar goals? I think that that's really very important.
And what other benefits, what other reasons would a family and a student choose SuOn over another international school that Ontario or Canada might have to offer?
Well, I think for one thing, you can say a lot of things, but I think results are very important. I always tell my students and my teachers that my students have to earn those marks, right? And they do, because when you earn a mark and you do well, then you are very prepared for university. I don't want my students to just apply. I want them to apply and succeed. So that's an important message at SuOn, that your hard work will pay off, not just now, but also for the future. And I think part of that success comes from our grandparents and parents. My students know that their parents support them, not just financially, but that they have their back at any turn. And that's important. Parents are a very critical part of any student's education, no matter what school they attend. But certainly at SuOn Academy, I have witnessed that over and over again. And I thank the parents immensely for their support, because I don't think any student can be successful without the support of the parents, of teachers who care, and support staff, because it takes many people to build a successful school.
And what are those communication structures that are in place at SuOn that enables staff, students to be in constant communication with the parents back home?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. And I think that's one of the things that we really value at SuOn. We have counselors, so every student is attached to a particular counselor, and they stay with that counselor throughout the year. So the counselors will help them with bank accounts, you know, going around Toronto, knowing the transit system. We take trips, like for example, Niagara Falls, ski trips, again, part of the enculturation into the Canadian society. But also after they have supper, we have what's called study time at night for 2 hours. And the counselors are there to support the students academically as well. So it's a long day, but I think that's another reason why the students do well. You know, we don't just start in the morning and finish by 3:30 and the day is over. So it is a long day, but I think the kids are committed. They've come with a goal and they achieve those goals, and I'm very proud of them.
And how do those counselors, do they help in the communication with the parents?
Absolutely. So when a student is having difficulty, which can happen at any time, the teacher will notify myself as the principal and the vice principal. So for example, they may say, you know, Maria did not hand an assignment, or she missed a test, maybe because they were sick. So automatically when that comes to us, we will forward that message to the counselor dealing with the student, and to also let the parents know. So whether it's a personal issue, an academic issue, parents want to know, and it is our right to communicate that to them. And I find that when kids know that you're communicating with parents, of course, that they perform better as well. And that's in any country, right?
I believe that 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of those counselors, are they also equipped to handle mental health issues? Say if the student is feeling stressed or anxious about an assignment or about something else in their life?
Yeah, I've always, in my schools, I mean, mental health is something that happens in every school in Ontario, right? Mental health does not pick certain students or certain schools. I'm a big believer in supporting students with mental health because students that do well feel a lot of pressure, right? They want to do well. They want to please the parents. They want to be accepted into university. So I find that that's why it's very important to have the counselors, but also my vice principal and I have an open door policy. I'm never too busy to see a student, no matter what the issue is, whether it's academic or personal. And I find sometimes, just talking about it is really helps them, because sometimes they're feeling something, but they're not quite sure what to name it or where to put it or how to get help. And so I think schools also have a role to play with students with mental health, very much so.
And what kind of family is drawn to SuOn? You mentioned that they're from all across China, but is there another thread that you've seen throughout the families that send their children to you?
Yeah, I think basically the type of family, I mean, if a student is doing well in China, wherever that city is, obviously they're going to do well in Canada. But I also think that the support they get in a school is very important because, students are young people, they're young adults, but even as young adults, they need the support. So I find that we attract parents who also have goals for their children, who want them in a safe school, but also parents who want and need the support for their sons and daughters. I think that's the kind of parent that we attract. Parents want to know that somebody is there, that somebody cares, and that if they need help, somebody will be there to help them. I think that's very important for parents. And those are the kind of parents we generally attract.
And is there a student that wouldn't excel at SuOn, or you would advise against maybe I think there's a better fit?
Yeah, I mean, very, very, very few. A handful or less, I would say, but that's part of the ongoing communication with the parents, right? So I always, when I go to China, when I talk to the parents, I let them know that if a student is coming to Canada or anywhere else in the world, I think learning the language of that country is really important. So for example, the more the student comes with some language ability, reading, writing, communication, any type of communication, good listening skills. I think those students tend to do better because again, with ESL students, they need accommodations, right? They're bright students, but when you're learning a language, you still need to be have your program accommodated so that you are more successful.
So the instruction at SuOn is in English.
Absolutely. And we always say, English, please, English, please. Now, sometimes, like any other student who speaks a second language, they, may slip up and say something in Mandarin. But our goal is to speak as much English as possible.
And is there a journey or a trajectory that is typical for a graduate from SuOn?
Well, I think a lot of our students, both boys and girls, do extremely well in the math, physics, sciences. A lot of them, their goals are University of Toronto, University of Waterloo. Of course, my conversation with them is, whatever university you'll end up with, your diploma, your degree is only the beginning of your life. What you do with that degree will decide the rest of your life. And students understand that. So, sciences, science research, accounting, business, physics, math. I mean, we offer all the courses that students need to graduate with, but sometimes year to year, you may have a different focus, right? So one year you may have just as many girls go into engineering as the boys. Not just go into it, but exceed with honors. This year we had many Ontario scholars, and that's excellent. It's really wonderful to see. They worked very hard, and they deserve what they get.
And how does SuOn complement the academics with a social education as well? Like you say, getting to know the culture of Canada as well as get a solid education.
So one of the things we do is leadership is very important. And when students arrive, we have been very lucky that we have a lot of leaders. So to give you an example, this year I decided that if you apply for student council, you should have a role. So, we had the president and the vice president and the secretary and all of that. But there were many students that applied for those positions. So there was one person heading that, like one president, but there was a second president who was helping the president. A treasurer. There were many people who apply for treasurer. So I keep all the students because leadership is so important in their life, in their career, and you should never close a door to a student. If there's an opportunity, I think you should keep that door open. And I think the students really like that this year. Why have 5 people when you could have 20 people on council helping each other? And then once they're elected, they pretty much take over, whether it's sports or, Chinese New Year is very much celebrated and anything that the kids like and come with suggestions and ideas, so we try to accommodate.
How does SuOn address inter-student conflict?
Inter-student conflict. Well, that's really interesting. I think that when you're doing conflict of any kind, you're not looking to blame, right? So whether it's 2 kids or 2 adults, this is the way I resolve conflict. I always ask the question, where did the conflict begin, right? And then take it from there. And whenever there's a conflict, somebody has to take responsibility for where that started. And then you need to talk about that, right? Resolving conflict is not about blame or bringing kids down. It's about resolving the problem and moving on. Even if you agree to disagree, but at least you know where it started and where you are going from there. And I think our students are good listeners. They oftentimes, because they listen well, they're able to talk about the conflicts in a matter which can be resolved quickly. That's not always the case, right? I think that, again, conflict is part of life, and learning how to resolve conflict is also part of life. And I think our students do that very well.
And within the student population, they're all from China. They're all coming from the same background.
Absolutely.
Is there a approach or a tactic that SuOn takes in order to, I guess, broaden their experiences and their social contacts, so that they're learning from all of what Canada can offer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of those things is to, for example, sometimes the students will say, how I was taught in China may be a little different than how you're taught in Canada. 2 different education systems, both excellent and both aiming for the same goal, to, have students who graduate and do well. I think sometimes the approaches that they take may be different, but the goal is, certainly the same.
If SuOn was a person, what kind of personality traits would it have?
I think SuOn was a person, it would have a smart person. That's how I would describe the students or that person. it would be a person who also has character, and part of that character would be good values. Getting a degree is important, but having good values in your life is equally important. Good values like humility, respect, dignity, taking responsibility. And I'm happy to say that our students are not just learning this, they have come from a home and a culture that has really put that in place. And so your first teacher really is your parent. And if these are values that are instilled in you, then you're going to continue those values. And so that's the kind of person, and a person who's also accepting of others around them, because the world now is global. So the more we learn to work together, to understand each other, and support each other, we are going to have a better world for sure.
And for you as principal, where do you see the school growing or developing into over the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I think every principal that I know wants to see students be successful. I think, where do you go? You listen to students. Sometimes students also have answers that you or considerations that you may not have thought of. For example, what programs do kids like more than others? And I think sometimes where your students are at, like what they're looking to take. A lot of things have also changed in society, as you know. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Technology is no longer just about using a computer. Technology is about critical thinking skills, right? When people talk to you about 21st century thinking skills, which a lot of school boards are talking about these days, they're talking about collaboration, problem solving, not just problem solving, pen and pencil, but going outside the box, critical thinking, using your knowledge and skills to do critical thinking. So that's something that you're always looking for and looking ahead, because if you have those 21st century skills, you're really going to do well in life.
And what advice would you have for parents that are just starting their private school search?
I would say do your homework. Ask a lot of questions, talk to the principal. I mean, communication doesn't prevent us from seeing each other or talking to each other anymore all over the world. I think a parent has the right to ask those questions and to get answers to the questions. After they have been well informed, the choice is theirs. But I know that parents certainly, when they send their kids, they have a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I think that a principal or counselors or teachers, our job is to answer those questions the best that we can.
And it's for you, if you were going through this process, knowing what you know about the industry, what is a red flag that you would look out for?
You mean from the student's point of view?
For a student or parent point of view.
Okay, so a red flag would be someone who maybe emotionally is not ready to travel abroad. Like I always say to parents, sometimes parents will say to me, well, is 14 too young or is 15 too young? And I always say it's not so much the age, but the maturity of the student. So if a parent says to me they're 14, but they're ready, I believe them, right? And oftentimes those kids are ready, right? So I think that one of the red flags is not just to come, but come if the parent feels that they're ready to engage, to learn, to be responsible, and that they know exactly what they're coming for. Then I would say let them come and let them engage, because that to me is important, that the maturity level is there.
Well, thanks so much, Maria.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you.